Hello YouTube, it's Alex and Paul.
Hi.
Back again with our third video in our MTG 101 series, teaching you how to play Magic. And this video deals with the combat phase, and in particular I'm going to be talking about the last three steps: declare attackers, declare blockers, and combat damage. So, combat begins with beginning of combat, like we said in our last video talking about phases of your turn. The beginning of combat doesn't really matter unless your opponent has something to do something to one of your creatures or you, or if some card specifies that something happens during the beginning of combat. So, I control Centaur Courser, and I'm going to attack the other player. So, step 2, I declare an attack with Centaur Courser. They're going to block with Yoked Ox.
Step 3.
Now we get to step 4, which is combat damage. Centaur Courser is a 3/3. Yoked Ox is a 0/4. During combat damage, each creature simultaneously deals damage to the opposing creature equal to its power to the opposing creature's toughness. That was a big jumble of words. Let me explain it now. Centaur Courser is a 3/3. It has 3 power and 3 toughness. It deals 3 damage because it has 3 power to Yoked Ox, which has 4 toughness, which means Yoked Ox will not die because 3 does not beat 4, basically. Also in combat, it's important to note that you don't have to go over the toughness, you just have to meet it. So if for some reason Centaur Courser was a 4/4, it would kill the Yoked Ox, but in this case it's a 3/3, so it doesn't. Yoked Ox has a power of 0, so it deals 0 damage. Centaur Courser does not die.
It's also important to note that a creature's toughness resets at the end of each turn.
Yeah. Okay, so that is basically it in a nutshell. Now we're going to talk about combat tricks, for lack of a better term. So, the first, and maybe not the best way, but there are some cards that are really good if you do it this way, are Sorceries, which you have to cast during your first main phase before combat even begins. Assuming I had the mana to cast it, let's say I cast Overrun this turn, which costs 5. Okay, so it says creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain Trample until end of turn. Trample is an effect that, it's an effect that can be given by other cards, but it's also on some creatures as a static ability. We'll talk about it in one of our next videos. It basically says that if a creature has greater power than a blocking creature's toughness, the difference is dealt to the opposing player, to the defending player.
So, excess power over toughness is done to a player.
So with Overrun, my Centaur Courser gets +3 power and +3 toughness, which makes it a 6/6, and it gains Trample. So now, if I declare an attack and the Yoked Ox blocks, Centaur Courser will deal 6 damage to Yoked Ox, which is greater than its 4 toughness, which means that 2 damage will be dealt to the defending player. Okay. I hope that made sense.
Also, it's very important to note that there is such a thing as stack blocking. Now, in this scenario, the opponent has a 0/4 and a 2/2. Now, the 0/4 and the 2/2 could both block the now 6/6 Centaur Courser, giving them a total toughness of 6.
If I wanted to kill both creatures this way with an attacking Centaur Courser, I would have to deal 4 to the Yoked Ox and 2 to the Traveling Philosopher because it has 2 toughness. If that'll show up. Whatever. Since 6 damage is done between the two creatures, and I only have 6 power with the Centaur Courser, no damage is dealt to the opposing player.
But both creatures
die.
Right.
Okay.
It's also important to note that it is always the attacker that decides how damage...
Unless some card specifies otherwise.
Unless otherwise specified, attackers decide how damage is dealt between creatures.
If you're stack blocking.
If you're stack blocking.
Okay, so that takes care of casting a sorcery during main phase 1 to affect combat. Now we're going to get a little more complicated. So, now we're going to cast an instant, Giant Growth, which also gives +3/+3 until end of turn. So, let's say my Centaur Courser attacks. Since this is an instant card, I can use it whenever I choose to. So let's say just the Yoked Ox blocks. I can cast this, give my Centaur Courser +3/+3, making it have 6 power, which will then kill the Yoked Ox. Now, for the sake of showing how stack blocking works again, let's say I attack with my Centaur Courser, stack block with both. Normally I wouldn't be able to kill both of them, but since I have this spell, which gives me +3/+3, which I can use after blockers are declared, I now have 6 power. I can do 2 to Traveling Philosopher and 4 to Yoked Ox. They both die. They do not have 6 power between them, so Centaur Courser would live.
Yet again, damage is always chosen by the attacker.
And damage is always simultaneous, unless, and we're going to talk about this in one of our next videos, a creature has first strike or double strike.
Correct.
I think that pretty much sums it up for combat. I hope that made sense.
One last thing. You can use an instant at any of the 4 steps.
Yes.
As a little more advanced
the
tip.
3 steps.
What do you mean?
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. So
at any of the 4 steps.
Disregard what I said.
Now, why you might want to do this, why you might want to do something at a different step, if I can see the Giant Growth, if I play this at the beginning of combat, before anything is done, they know I have a 6/6, and that they would have to essentially sacrifice both of their creatures.
Or they could choose just not to block and take the 6 if they want to keep their creatures.
But it's all about baiting. If you make it a 6/6 before, that either forces them to decide whether they want to take 6, stack block, or use maybe a kill spell. Now, if I
just have one of their blockers die.
Or have one of their blockers die.
If you're attacking before, say you go to step 2 and you declare attackers. Then you cast it, same deal. They know what's happening before they're blocking. If you wait until step 3, where they declare blockers, then you can say, my Centaur Courser gets +3/+3. Both of those die because of combat damage, which is in step 4.
Right. Or, if a different scenario happened, if you attacked with Centaur Courser, and the second person, say, decided that they just wanted to block with the Yoked Ox,
same deal.
Or, no, say that no blockers were declared,
and
this person essentially was able to just hit through to the opponent.
For 3.
You
could make that 6.
You could make that 6. So if the opponent was at, say, 4, 5, or 6 life, you could just win the game by playing this instant at the combat damage step.
Yep.
Anyways.
This is a long video. We're going to cut it now. We really hope this made sense to you. Combat is one of the hardest things to get when you're first learning. Stay with it. I hope this helped you learn how to deal with combat.
After watching this video, my best advice for learning combat, play with people that have been playing Magic for a long time.
I agree.
Get this down.
They will know how to help you get it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this helped. Bye.
Bye.